So today we're going to go over some basic right-hand arpeggio patterns on open strings. What I'll do is I'll first demonstrate the exercises so you can just kind of get to know them and why I'm assigning them. And then we'll have a dedicated discussion about right-hand planting or right-hand preparation on the strings. So for an example, I'm going to be using number 4 from my 20 Favorite Exercises book, and there's a link for that under the video, but you can just watch for free and get the ideas about planting, and also the exercises are pretty easy to pick up on as well. So there's about 5 different exercises here. The first one is called Intro Moving Bass. So let's just go through the exercises quickly and then we'll talk about the planting idea. So intro moving bass is just a combination pattern where we're going to go P-I-M, P-M-I, and then the thumb will gravitate to different bass notes. So top 3 strings, P-I-M, P-M-I, then the thumb gravitates downward to the bass. And of course you want to practice those at different speeds. Now we're going to go over 4 exercises meant to balance each of the different fingers within an arpeggio. So we'll be accenting a different finger each time. So the first one we're going to do is P-I-M-A on the top 4 strings, and we're accenting the thumb. That one's nice and easy because everyone's used to accenting the thumb. It's such a big finger that's it's easy to accent. Next pattern we're going to do is we're going to accent the I finger, and we'll start on the I finger. So same strings, top 4 strings, but we're going to start with I on the 3rd string. So I-M-A-P, I-M-A-P, but we're going to accent the I finger. If you're having trouble bringing out the I finger, think about doing a deeper follow through towards the palm. Remember, the thumb tends to be loud for most people, so we want to make sure it's only the I finger getting accented and the thumb is buried still. The next one will be M-A-P-I, same strings. So same strings, top 4 strings, but we're starting on the 2nd string with M. M-A-P-I, 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 M-A-P. And remember, we want to accent the M finger. So that's bringing out the M finger. And then the last one, we're going to change the pattern and we're just going to go A-M-I-P, and we'll accent the A finger. So each of those little patterns brings out a different finger, and it's just meant to balance your arpeggio. Sometimes people's arpeggios are very unbalanced. It's always like the thumb that's loud or something. But this gives you an opportunity to try to bring out one of your fingers, because in music, quite often, a melody will be somewhere in the arpeggio, and you'll have to bring that melody out. I'm saying that in my videos all the time. Bring out the melody, bring out the melody. Bury the accompaniment, soften the accompaniment. And so exercises like this gives you an opportunity, just on open strings, to do that. Now, let's talk about some ways to practice these arpeggios. One thing you can do is you can try doing a rest stroke on the accent. So on number 1, you could do an accent or a rest stroke on the thumb, and then free stroke on the fingers. So it'd be rest, free, 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 rest, free, free, free. On number 2, that's the I accent. You could do a rest stroke with the I finger only. It really helps accent it and bring it out. You wouldn't necessarily do this in performance, but it's a great thing to practice. You could accent the M finger, M, or do a rest stroke with the M finger. Rest, free, 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 rest, free, 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 rest, free, free, free. Same thing with the A finger. Lots of books have these kinds of exercises, but it's a really great way to practice. If you're playing a piece and you want to bring out a voice, you could practice doing a rest stroke on the melody voice or the thing that you want to bring out. It doesn't mean that you'll necessarily play it with rest stroke, but you can practice it that way. And the feeling of that deeper stroke will end up in your muscle memory. So now let's have a dedicated lesson on planting in the right hand. So we're going to talk about 3 different types of planting: full plants, partial plants, and sequential plants. Each of them have a different benefit to them. And they also have an effect on the music or an effect on the sound. So you have to keep those 2 things in mind. Just remember that we're only practicing these. We're using these to practice, and we're putting them into our hand as something that will be available to us in the future. Whether you use them in pieces or not will depend on the music and will depend on you. But it's something that we'll use to practice arpeggios to enrich your arpeggio practicing, because you don't just play things over and over with repetition until you think you're good at them. You need ways to practice. But also there's particular benefits. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the camera and come up closer, and I'll just show you what each of these plants are all about so that you know what the 3 different plants are. So now we'll go over all the different types of planting. The first one we're going to go over is called a full plant. In a full plant, all your fingers rest on the strings. So P, I, M, and A will all rest on the strings, and then you'll play the strings one at a time. And then you'll plant all of them again. Obviously, when you do that, you'll stop all the sound, so that's one of the consequences. But in a full plant, you'll be planting all of the fingers. Now, the next type of planting is called a partial plant. A partial plant is when groups of fingers plant. So in this case, I'm going to plant the thumb first, and then once the thumb is played, I'll plant all 3 of my fingers. Then play, then plant my thumb, play, then plant my fingers. So it's this kind of experience of like thumb, fingers, plant, 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 plant. So in this case, you'll always hear something ringing out. So. So that's partial plants, and then sequential plants are when only the next finger that plays plants. So we would start with the thumb planted, and when the thumb plays, the I finger would plant. When the I plays, the M finger would plant on the string. When the M plays, the A finger would plant on the string. And very importantly, when the A plays, we plant the thumb to start the cycle all over again. So remember, you want to plant pretty much simultaneously with the playing of another finger. I mean, it can be a little bit afterwards, but nevertheless, it's very close. So I'm over-exaggerating my movements slightly. Now, when you're first starting to learn sequential planting, just make sure you go really slow and that you feel the string before you play. So how about 1 second for each string? So 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. You know, making sure that each finger rests on that string and you can really feel the planting. And of course, when you go faster, you'll still be able to feel it. So just to review, full plants, all the fingers, partial plants, groups of fingers, so maybe thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, and sequential planting, the next available finger. Okay, so now you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about when I talk about planting. And those are the 3 different types of plants. Now, let's talk about the benefits and the downsides of each one. But of course, you want to practice all of them so that they're available to you and that they're in your muscle memory. And by the way, before we go any further, just remember, this all becomes a sensation in the hand. It's not something you have to think about. It's just something you practice until it's available to you, and then you can flick a switch and turn these things on, whether you need them or not. So let's talk about those full plants. Now, part of planting, the reason we do planting is to gain a greater amount of security and accuracy in our playing. Now, this might be accuracy because you just are you're hitting wrong strings lots, so that kind of accuracy. Or it could be because you get nervous in performance and your hand shakes, and having your fingers on the strings stops them from shaking. So there's lots of different types of benefits to these. When you're doing the full plant, the good thing about it is that it really teaches the muscle memory of the distance of the strings. So it's very good for your accuracy and your muscle memory of pattern recognition in the right hand. And it's very compact. But the unfortunate thing is that it stops the sound. I'll stop the bass strings here too, but as soon as you put all your fingers down on those strings, it stops the sound. So it's not a very legato technique. Sometimes we want to tighten up the sound of our pieces though, so full plants can be very useful to tighten the sound up and stop things from ringing. But in other times it's not going to be very desirable. It's almost like there's a little hiccup in between each one. Now, partial plants, that's where the thumb plays and then we'll plant the fingers, or a similar combination. This is a little bit more legato, so you get a lot of that accuracy and a lot of that security, but it's fairly legato because you always have the bass string ringing out, bass, and then you're planting. So there's always something ringing out. Cleans up the sound though a little bit and is certainly secure technique-wise. Now, sequential planting is the most legato because everything pretty much rings out except for whatever is going to be played next. Now, at slow speeds, you can kind of hear when I mute something, but at faster speeds, it just sounds kind of like normal playing. But I can feel the sequential planting all the way up to pretty fast speeds because remember, after like 10 years of practicing different types of planting, it's just a sensation in my hand. I don't think about it anymore. So even when I start ramping up the speed, I can still feel it in my hand. I can feel the sequential planting if I'm doing a little bit of it. It's not very perceptible, and certainly there's a moment when it doesn't matter anymore, you're just kind of playing fast, but nevertheless, it's a feeling in the hand that you get used to if you do it a lot. So each of those different styles of planting help you in a different way, and they also benefit your technique in a different way as well. Let's just talk about some of the other benefits of planting. So we talked about accuracy. If your fingers are in the right place before they have to play, then they're probably going to hit the correct string, right? If my thumb is on the 4th string before it is going to play, it'll hit the right string, as opposed to my thumb kind of coming out from nowhere and hitting a wrong string by accident. So if your fingers are on the strings, they'll play the right, the correct string. So certainly there's an accuracy element there. Now, another thing that trains the hand to do is for speed. If your fingers are in the right place before they have to play, then they'll be able to play at any time. And when that kind of translates later into speed, but accuracy and speed are kind of the same thing. When you can be fast when you're accurate. But certainly training your fingers to be in the right place before they have to play is a very compact way of playing. It means that your fingers aren't just out here, and that when you have to play, you have to bring your finger all the way to the string. No, your finger's already on the string, So it's very tight and very compact and ready to go. So your movements will be small and economic. So it does help with speed in the long run. Now the other thing too is that if you get nervous and you shake when you play, having one of your fingers on the strings will really calm down the right hand. It doesn't matter how much I shake. If my finger's on that string already, it'll play that string comfortably. So you can kind of build a scale. If I feel really nervous, I might do a lot of planting, even full planting, just to kind of calm my hand down and make sure that I just play notes, if I'm in a performance situation. If I'm medium nervous, I feel pretty good, I'll just do some light sequential planting, just for a little bit of feeling of security and contact with the strings, but not so much that it would stop any of the legato happening. And then if I feel really, really comfortable, super comfortable, I might not do any planting. Just try to be as legato as possible by spending as little time on the string as possible. Because the less time you spend on the string, the more it can ring out before the next time you play it. So there's kind of you can build a scale as to how nervous you are or how much security or accuracy you need in a particular situation, and then apply that amount of planting to help the situation. So it can be a very big performance benefit. But the main reason why we're doing it at this stage is to build accuracy and to give you a way to practice your arpeggios. So I hope that by practicing even these simple little patterns with all these different ways of practicing, you'll really build control in your hand. Just by being able to do it, you will have more control over each of your fingers. And of course, these arpeggio patterns are useful for tuning up the balance of your hand as well, so that would be another benefit in there.